To help me unpack this and speak to what we can look forward to moving forward in terms of the Formula One. I am joined by Formula One analyst Lufefe, Mayekiso, as well as Avon, Middleton, joining us virtually. And good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Lufefe, let me start with you, because we look at what Max Verstappen was able to do this season. It wasn't so much the one-horse race that we've seen in past seasons. And this time around, we also saw him having to do a lot of the work on his own, unlike 2021, where he had a Perez also playing a major role in him securing that title.
Morning, Vusiwe, and thank you for having me once again. Yes, definitely. I think this one of all his championships is the one that he's had to work for the most. I mean, when you look back at his drive in Brazil 3 weeks ago, for me, I think that's the drive that now enters him into the talks of the all-time greats.
And Avon, I want to shift away a little bit from Max and his spotlight at the moment and speak about Lando Norris, who many will say had such a disappointing campaign, because many argue that he had the fastest car on the track, but on so many occasions just seemed to drop the ball. What do you make of Lando Norris' season?
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, a little bit disappointing for many, not just McLaren fans, but just for people that wanted to see Formula One have a different winner at the top. They had the car, and we must commend them for turning that car around. We know what that car was like right at the beginning of the season. So for them to build a car that was so dominant towards the end of the season was really good. But I think the problem that Lando has is the problem that Max does not have, and that is a teammate that can fight with you. We can't count Oscar Piastri, and a lot of Lando's problems, and this is why McLaren got into a situation of team orders, was because Piastri was right there with him and sometimes beating him. And Piastri was trying to also sort of say, well, I'm here and I need to fight for something myself. So I think that made it difficult. And then I think the other thing, of course, is just the inconsistency towards the end. What Lando needed to do was win every race. You know, these last 5-6 races, Lando needed to win. And then he would genuinely be in a contention for the championship. So I think that was his problem, was just the lack of consistency, and that's something that's down to him for the most part, and then a teammate that was really, really quick. Max's teammate wasn't fighting him at all, so I think that's the difference.
That indeed did seem to be the difference. Lufefe, we look at a Ferrari and McLaren, and maybe many will say they seem to have the strongest package, but also Ferrari seem to be letting themselves down quite a bit, perhaps just not having the right strategy for their drivers, despite them putting out a good show with every race that came out.
Yeah, Ferrari are their own worst enemy, eh? I mean, they've got a quick car. In some races, you found that they actually had the quickest package, like Circuit of the Americas. They dominated that whole race weekend. But in some cases, after that, then they were nowhere. So they'll be up today and down tomorrow. And like you say, it's not just a performance issue. It's also, you know, the strategy calls. We heard Charles Leclerc ranting in the cool-down lap yesterday about how he's always compromising his races for the sake of the team. And the team principal, Frederick Vasseur, telling him to shut up.
I love that. I love that. Avon, let's chat to looking at a Lewis Hamilton. This past weekend was pretty much charged up and gave us a show of what we can expect from him when he's in a car that can perform. With him moving now to a Ferrari team, we look at the fact that he will be with a Charles Leclerc. And perhaps speak to me about those dynamics, because Leclerc is also someone that perhaps wants to repay him for the faith he's shown in him in the past. How do we see that combination working out next season? Are we expecting something like what we saw with a Hamilton and a Bottas, perhaps?
Sure. I think just to close out Hamilton's year, I want to say that he wants to finish with Mercedes as strong as he can in sort of true Hamilton fashion. And I think Vegas was one of those where I think he, you know, coming second was good for him. And but of course he would have liked that win because he wants to close out really strongly. But I'm very interested to see how he gets into that Ferrari team and changes it to suit his style, his brand, his company, if I could call it that. And so I think in terms of the dynamics, the first dynamic is to see how he changes the team and how they work. Because I can tell you, Hamilton is not going to accept a half-hearted approach to strategy, to making calls. Just signs into the pits yesterday and then darting out again. The thing with the Ferrari team is they make their own strategy. The drivers, that is, they're always, they're thinking about things that actually the team should be thinking about. And I think Hamilton's not going to accept that. So I think him and Fred are going to have a good chat over the holiday, and they're going to figure out how to change that team. Because like Michael Schumacher, when he got to Ferrari, he had to build a team that worked around him. And I think that was part of the success of it. It wasn't just a great driver coming in. And I think that's what Hamilton's going to do as well. Hamilton's beyond just driving. He's about building a team and a dynamic and a professional operation that is slick and that works really, really well. So I'm interested to see that. In terms of the team dynamic, I think him and Charles have a really good relationship. I think it's going to be very much like a Russell-Hamilton relationship where there's a lot of respect on the racetrack and off, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Hamilton in red.
And as I start to wrap up with both of you gentlemen, I want to put the same question to both of you. I want to touch on Adrian Newey, because we've seen in the past when he has left a team, they seem to struggle somewhat. What do we see happening with Red Bull now, moving forward into the next season and having to look at the 2026 car and building up to that and looking at possibly some of the rules and the restrictions that may be placed moving forward? I'll start with you, Lufefe.
Okay, well, it's true what you say, because if you look at Red Bull, they've been struggling since, I would say, Miami, and that's around the time that the announcement that Adrian Newey would be leaving for Aston Martin, and then he had that cool-down period where they said he's no longer allowed to come into some briefings for the team, etc. So we've already seen a regression from Red Bull, who won 6 of the first 7 races, looking like it was going to be one of those seasons like we saw last season and the season before. So they do seem to be struggling a bit. But you know what? That win in Brazil, their performance yesterday, I mean, they're a big team. They've got pedigree. And they've always said that they've got other people, younger blood, that maybe is not in the spotlight and we don't know yet, who maybe can fill in those big shoes. So let's see.
Avon, just 20 seconds there. Thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think this year is a great metaphor for what 2025 is going to be and possibly beyond. The team and everything that happened within the team shook up everything. There was a lot of staff, apart from Adrian Newey, that have left Red Bull and gone to other teams, McLaren and Ferrari and Aston Martin. And so I think they're definitely going to feel it. The results speak for themselves. They do have a fundamentally good car, so I don't necessarily say next year they're going to be nowhere, but I certainly think it's not going to be the dominant Red Bull that we've seen over the past 3 seasons. So everything to play for.
Everything to play for come next season. Thank you so much to Lufefe Mayekiso joining us here in studio, as well as Avon Middleton joining us via virtually, just to speak all things Formula One. It's another 4th title for the youngster out, of course, at Red Bull. That's how we wrap up your sport news for today, right here on Morning Live.